Alright guys, today you're going to be doing a review competition with me, but I'm not in the room. You have a sub. Sub's going to cover all the management stuff, so if you guys are goofing off, if you're not paying attention, if you're talking over the video, you're going to get demerits, right? And you're going to get sent out. So act like I'm there. Same thing as usual. On top of that, we're just going to go ahead and get started. So, a couple directions for what you'll be doing. This is a review game, and you're going to be competing as tables. Whatever table has the highest points at the end is going to win, and that table is going to get extra points added onto a quiz grade because you guys have a quiz coming up. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to put up the definition and picture of an organelle using the flashcards from Quizlet. You're going to get 30 seconds to write the name of that organelle on your whiteboard. At the end of 30 seconds, you have to be completely silent and hold up your board. If you're not completely silent or if you're talking, you're going to get a demerit from the sub, and if you get 3 demerits, you need to be sent out, okay? So again, my expectations, you need to be silent at the end of the 30 seconds. You'll earn a demerit, and you'll also lose a point. If you're still writing at the end of 30 seconds, you cannot earn a point for that round, so you need to make sure that you are fast. And this says top 5 students is actually going to be the top 2 tables, okay? So not top 5 students, top 2 tables. So this is your first question here. This cell organelle controls what enters and exits the cell, and you have 30 seconds to answer that. "15 seconds left. 10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. You should have cell membrane for this. If you do not have cell membrane written down, write it down on the packet that you got at the start of class. This way you can use that packet to help you study for the quiz we have coming up. Alright, we're going to move on to the next one in just a few seconds. Remember, the cell membrane controls what enters and exits the cell. For a lot of you guys, for your example, you said that the cell membrane was like the door for your analogy. Alright, this next organelle is a whip-like tail that can be found on some cells to help them move. 30 seconds started. "20-second warning. 10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, 0. All whiteboards need to be up. The correct answer here is flagella. So flagella is that whip-like tail, that big long tail. You can see it right here on the end of the cell. And they use these to move around, help them find food, stuff like that. That you could think about that sort of like a tadpole, or maybe a fish using its tail to swim around. Alright, our next question. This organelle provides an extra layer of support to plant cells outside of their cell membrane. "10 seconds in, so 20 seconds left. Okay, 10 seconds left. And whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So the correct answer for this one should be a cell wall. We haven't really talked about the differences between plants and animal cells yet, but one key difference is that plant cells have a cell wall and animal cells do not. On a plant cell, the cell wall goes outside of their cell membrane, and it makes the plant cells really, really hard and rigid. And a great way to see an example of that is, if you look at me right now, I can squeeze my cheeks, and I can bend my skin, because I'm made out of animal cells, right? I'm all stretchy and squishy. But I'm sitting at a wooden desk, and you can hear if I knock on that desk, it's nice and hard, because that's made out of plants, and plants have those hard cell walls around them. Alright, our next question. This is the jelly-like filling of the cell that holds all of the organelles in place. You can see my arrow is pointing to it right in here. Sort of goopy stuff. 20 seconds left. Ten seconds left. Make sure you're writing down your answers. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So you should have written cytoplasm. If you wrote cytoplasm, you received a point. If you did not have cytoplasm, you did not get any points. Cytoplasm is that jelly-like filling. I like to think of cytoplasm. If you took a water balloon, right? You take a balloon and you fill it up with water. The cytoplasm is kind of like the water inside a balloon. It's just that it's the majority of it. It's what everything is floating in. Alright. Our next organelle. This is a network of fibers that gives the cell shape. "20 seconds left. "10 seconds left. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So you should have written down cytoskeleton. Remember, cytoskeleton, we talked about that keyword in there being skeleton, right? I have a skeleton in my body, and that's what gives my body shape. And it's the same thing in a cell. If you look here on the screen, you can see these fibers, these lines moving all over the cell. And those are making that cell have that particular shape that it has. Those are the cytoskeleton there. Alright, we're going to move on to our next one here. This organelle inspects proteins to make sure that they are the correct shape. A lot of you guys called this a spell checker. "20 seconds left. "10 seconds left. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So the correct answer here is endoplasmic reticulum. I would also accept if you just wrote ER, that's fine. The ER are these, we haven't really looked at this much, but the ER are these like sort of blue squiggly lines moving all through the cell here, right around the nucleus. And so what these do is when proteins get made in the cell, these guys check out all the proteins to make sure that they were done correctly. Because if a protein's done wrong, it could do all kinds of really messed up things in a cell, and it could, you know, the cell might not work correctly, or it might cause other cells nearby not to work correctly, so it's bad stuff. Alright, our next organelle. This is an organelle in plant cells that helps them convert sunlight into food. "20 seconds left. "10 seconds left. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. The organelle in plant cells that helps them convert sunlight into food is a chloroplast. And so if you look here, we can see the chloroplast. They're these green guys with these sort of lumpy stacks in them. Okay? And what a chloroplast does is it takes in sunlight and it takes in water and it produces carbon dioxide, and it produces sugar, and then that sugar can be stored in the plant itself, and then an animal could come along and eat the plant and consume that sugar and use that sugar to make energy, or it could be sent to a different organelle that we'll come across in a few minutes. It'll get sent to a different organelle, and that organelle can burn the sugar to turn it into energy for the cell. We can also notice some things in here, like we can see that cell wall, that really hard cell wall, wrapping around the outside of the cell membrane. That's another major difference with plant cells. And then one other big difference, and we're going to talk about this later on in the week, one other big difference you can see here is look how big the vacuole is on the plant cell. Plant cells have a huge vacuole. Animal cells have maybe a couple small ones, but plant cells normally have one really big vacuole. Alright, we're going to take a look at our next question. This organelle contains DNA that tells the ribosomes which proteins to make. $20 seconds. $10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So you should have written down the nucleus for this. You can see the nucleus is right in here, and stored in the nucleus is the DNA, and the DNA is super important. It's like the control center for the cell, right? And what's interesting actually is bacteria, prokaryotes, they don't actually have a nucleus. They still have DNA, but the DNA kind of floats free throughout a bacteria cell. But plant cells and animal cells, which we call eukaryotes, plant cells and animal cells, they have their DNA stored in a nucleus. Alright, we're going to take a look at our next organelle here. This organelle provides energy for the cell. So this is the organelle that takes in those sugars and makes energy. $20 seconds. $10 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and 0. The correct organelle is mitochondria, which you probably knew because I accidentally left it completely visible there on the slide. But yes, so the mitochondria, you can see it here. It looks like a jelly bean with zebra stripes. This kind of sort of red and yellow and orange color here. These mitochondria, what they do is they take in sugars, and they convert them into energy for the cell. And that happens in plant cells, and it also happens in animal cells. So it happens in all the eukaryote cells. For plant cells, they're making their own sugars with their chloroplast through sunlight and photosynthesis. For animal cells, they're actually going out and they're eating things. So they're eating plants or they're eating other animals to get those sugars and use those for energy. Alright, our next organelle is responsible for making proteins. $20 seconds. $10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So this should be the ribosome. And you can't really see them that well. They're not any of these big things up on this cell, but if you look closely, you can see these little sort of reddish dots all over the endoplasmic reticulum, and you can see some of them floating around out here in the cytoplasm. These are all the ribosomes, and these are making proteins. So we have DNA in the nucleus. It's getting sent out to the ribosomes, and the ribosomes are taking that genetic information, and they're using it to make proteins for the cell. Alright, we are getting close to the end of the organelles. This next one here is tiny hair-like projections that help a cell move. "20 seconds. "10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. This is cilia, the silly old cilia, the silly little cilia. So those are these little tiny hairs all over this cell. They're not hairs, actually. They're sort of little protein tubes, but they're all over the outside of the cell, and they help it wiggle around and move around. They do kind of the same thing that flagella does. Remember, flagella was that big, long whip-like tail, but these are a bunch of little tiny ones. And actually, we have cilia all over the inside of our throat, and they help us push food down into our stomach. It's kind of gross, really, but it's neat. Alright, our next organelle packages proteins and sends them where they are needed, either inside or outside of the cell. "20 seconds. "10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. The Golgi apparatus. I also would accept Golgi body or even just GA, because I know that's kind of hard to spell some of those words there. Yeah, so the Golgi apparatus, I think a lot of us talked about this sort of like it was the UPS of the cell, or maybe it was mailboxes, any sort of way of taking things in and out of the cell. Some people who were doing sports stadiums called the Golgi apparatus like the team buses, so the athletes could come and go from the stadium. Yeah, Golgi apparatus are all about sending things in and out, and we can actually see these sort of green, bubbly, tubey things. They look a little bit like the ER back here, but they're green and bubbly. What actually happens here is whatever important information or nutrients or proteins gets wrapped up in this green bubble, and then the bubble pops off. You can see some of them popping off right here, floating away, and they go out here through the side of the cell, and they go out into the world, out to go see other cells, or maybe just to go deliver a message. Alright, our next one's coming up. This cell organelle stores water, minerals, and waste. 30 seconds. "20 seconds. "10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. This is the vacuole. It's that big storage container. A lot of you guys call the vacuole like maybe a trash can or a refrigerator, some sort of storage lot. Vacuoles are all about storage. And if we look up here, you're probably looking at this cell. I bet you can tell what kind of cell this is. Look, it's got this hard exterior around it, this like really structured shape. It's not wibbly and wobbly. If we look back here, this cell here is all wibbly and wobbly, right? This one that we're looking at with the vacuole has this big hard exterior, It has these green things with those stacks of little green coin looking things in there, and it has a gigantic vacuole. All of those are characteristics of plant cells. All of those are important for plant cells. Alright, I'm pretty sure this is the last organelle. This organelle helps organize the cell before it divides. A lot of you guys might have called this a janitor in your analogy. Ten seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. Centrioles! Centrioles organize the cell before it divides. That's their job. They're really, really good at it. Want to make sure everything's in the right place before that cell multiplies. And you can see the centrioles right down here. It kind of looks like two little tubey things crossed over each other right in there. Oh, I was wrong. We are not done. Maybe this is the last one. This organelle breaks down molecules so that they can be reused by the cell. You also might think of this organelle as being important for cleaning up the cell. 20 seconds. Ten seconds left. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So this is the lysosome, and you can see my lysosome is labeled right here. It's this sort of light blue circle. Remember, lysosomes, I like to call them like lysosomes, like Lysol wipes. Lysosomes clean up the cell, so they break down molecules and other waste that the cell doesn't need anymore, and kind of reuses them, makes them useful again. Lysosomes are good stuff. Okay, here we go. Now we're in the bonus rounds. Alright, so the bonus rounds, these are worth 3 points each. Those last set of questions were only worth 1 point each. So this is where the game gets real. The same rules are going to apply. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write the answer on your whiteboard. At the end of the 30 seconds, you have to be completely silent. Otherwise, you're going to get a demerit. You'll lose points. And not just one, you're going to lose 3 points if you're talking at the end of the 30 seconds. Alright? So, our first bonus round question. They're all about prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. Is the following a description of a prokaryote or a eukaryote? DNA is held in the nucleus of this type of cell. 30 seconds on the clock. $20 seconds. $10 seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. It's a eukaryote. Any cell that has a nucleus is a eukaryote. It could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a fungus, it could be all kinds of different things. It could be a protist. But it's going to be a eukaryote. Anything with a nucleus is a eukaryote. So if you got that right, that's 3 points to you. Okay, our next question. Once again, it's going to be prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. Is this the description of a prokaryote or a eukaryote? These cells are smaller and less complex. 30 seconds going. $10 seconds to put up your answers. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. These cells that are smaller and less complex are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are little itty bitty tiny bacteria cells. And eukaryotes are bigger animal and plant cells. They're much larger, much more complex. They have specific organelles in them. They have a lot more functions and jobs. Bacteria cells, prokaryotes, are really simple. If you got that right, that's 3 points for you. Alright, bonus number 3 out of 5. Does this sound like a prokaryote or a eukaryote? Bacteria are an example of this type of cell. Ten seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So I'm pretty sure I gave this one away if you were listening. Bacteria are definitely prokaryotes. Bacteria are simple, they're little, they're not very complex, but they're pretty nasty and they can get us really sick. Bonus number 4. Does this sound like a prokaryote or a eukaryote? Plants, animals, fungi, and protists are made of this type of cell. 30 seconds on the clock. Fifteen seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. So we haven't talked about protists in here at all. And we're not really going to talk about protists much this year. But we already know that plants, animals, and fungi are all eukaryotes, because eukaryotes are complex, and we are complex. So if you have eukaryotes on your board, you just got 3 points. We have one more bonus question. So our last bonus question here. Which, does this sound like a prokaryote or a eukaryote? This type of cell is more complex and has membrane-bound organelles. 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. This, of course, as I'm sure you all already know because I've said it about 100 times now, this is, of course, a eukaryote. If it's complex, if it has organelles, it's a eukaryote. If it's simple, if it's small, if it's basic, it's a prokaryote. So I did lie because there is a double bonus round. So this is the final bonus, okay? And I'm going to give you a little bit of time for this because this is worth 10 points. And you'll have 2 minutes to answer this question on your board. What are the 8 characteristics of living things? You need all 8. Just the acronym will not be enough. You need all 8. You can use your notes. You can use the people at your table. Good luck. 2 minutes on the clock. A minute and a half left. You have 90 seconds left. You have 60 seconds left to answer this question. Remember, you need all 8 characteristics of living things. "30 seconds left. You have 30 seconds to answer this final question. Remember, this is 10 points. Try to get those points. I will take the top 2 high-scoring tables. "15 seconds to answer. 10. Whiteboard's up in 3, 2, 1, and 0. All whiteboards should be up. It needs to be totally silent. The 8 characteristics of living things. You can see I put them in order of that acronym, Rich Greed. All living things reproduce, or could reproduce. All living things have cells. Maintain homeostasis. And remember, homeostasis is that like internal balance. When I get really, really hot, I start sweating. When I get really, really cold, I start shivering. All living things grow and develop over their lifetime. So that's like a butterfly that starts as a little caterpillar, goes into its cocoon, and then it comes out a big butterfly. Or it could be a tadpole that turns into a frog, right? Could also be like a baby turning into an adult. All living things respond to their environment. So if I'm cooking in my kitchen and I touch a hot pan, I'm going to pull my hand away really fast because I burnt myself and I'm responding to my environment. And actually trees even do this, where if a tree gets cut, it's going to start sending out sap, and that sap is going to harden up and protect the outside of that tree. All living things evolve. And remember, evolution doesn't just happen all of a sudden. It doesn't happen like, boom, you evolved. It takes thousands and thousands of years and many, many, many generations to evolve. It's not a quick process. It's not a quick process at all. All living things use energy, right? And that's where the mitochondria comes in. We're turning sugar into energy. And finally, all living things have DNA. Even bacteria have DNA. They don't have a nucleus, but they have DNA. So if you got all 8 of these correct, your table just got 10 points. And I'm going to have the sub write down whatever 2 tables have the highest number of points. Those 2 tables are going to get a couple extra points on their test or quiz coming up in the next few days. If this video finishes early and you have a few extra minutes of class, you guys can just kind of hang out quietly, keep your phones away, stay in your seats. You can do work for another class, you can chit chat with your neighbor, all of that's fine with me. Just make sure you're not doing anything too crazy. Have a great weekend. I will see you guys all on Monday. Bye-bye.